All right, here we go. Quiz review. Number 1. So let's do this together, okay? The question for number 1 says, what is the equation of the line that is parallel to the line x equals 3 and it passes through that point? This one's a kind of weird one because they don't give me like a y equals mx plus b. They just give me x equals and then some number. So it's weird, but it's actually much easier than it would be, I guess, if this were like a normal problem. Can someone raise their hand if they think they know what to do for this problem? Yes, Rowan?
Just have it y or rather x. The line is x equals -2.
Okay, so Rowan gave us the answer. I mean, it's that quick. It literally, so let me show you what Rowan is thinking, okay? If you want a line parallel to that, I don't know what that looks like. Why don't we graph it first? So go ahead and let's draw an XY axis on our paper. I have x equals 3. So remember how I graph this? I go to the x-axis. I go to 1, 2, 3, and I draw a dot on 3. So what Rowan is saying to do is, why don't we just sketch this and see what it looks like? So for x equals 3, is it horizontal or is it vertical, guys?
Vertical.
It's vertical. Remember how it's always confusing. You're like, x would be horizontal. No, not when we graph it. It would be vertical. Okay, so now they're saying, I want a line parallel to this, but it has to go through this point. So it has to go through -2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So let's sketch that out. -2, 5 is right here. I want a line parallel to the blue one, but it has to go through that point. Well, isn't parallel to a vertical line another vertical line? Does that make sense? So really, Rowan just said, well, what is that? Vertical lines are always x equals. So what is x equal to? -2. So that's how you would do that type of problem if you had this on your quiz. You might get that question. I don't know. I mean, it's out of a bank of like 17 questions. So you might get that question. But that's what you can do. And that's what you can look at as you take the quiz. Okay? All right. That's what we're doing right now. Okay, next one. Now it gets a little bit harder. So first of all, I made a mistake when I wrote this. Can we cross that out? And just give me 2 numbers, 2 new numbers. Any numbers. 2, comma what? 7. Great. Okay. So this question is saying, what is the equation of the line that is parallel to this and it passes through that point? So remember what we did when we did this? This was like 4.3, I think. So my final answer is going to look like this, right? I have to figure out what's the slope, what's the y-intercept. Well, I want it parallel to this line. So I already know what the slope is. Can someone raise their hand if they know? What number has to be the slope because it's parallel? 3, yes. Right, does that make sense? Like if it's parallel lines have the same slope. So if it's the same slope, you're just recopying it. Okay, now all I have to do is find B. We've done this like 1.5 million times. Okay, raise your hand. Cameron, what do I do? Yes. Right, they don't give you a point if you're not going to use it. Use that as your x and use that as your y. So you have y equals 3x plus b, and you don't know what b is. So all you have to do is plug in your x and plug in your y. So your y is 7 equals 3 times x is 2, plus b. So at this point, I would solve for b. So multiply that. So I have 7 equals 6 plus b. Now what do I do, guys? Minus 6 on both sides. So I get 1 equals b. So b is 1, and boom, that's my answer, 3x plus 1. So I feel like if you were to just read the question, it would be kind of confusing because there's just a lot of words and a lot going on. But maybe if you realize, oh, that's what I need, then you can slowly get yourself to, oh, how do I figure that out? How do I figure that out? Okay, the last one for this. So this is all part of the first quiz. That's equations of parallel and perpendicular lines. Okay, so what is the slope intercept form? Oh, okay, so this is my final answer. Y equals blank x plus blank. Okay, so what is the slope-intercept form of the equation of the line that passes through that point? Remember how we said they're not going to just give me a point if I'm not going to use it. That's probably my x, that's probably my y, but it is perpendicular to this. Okay, this is a little bit more difficult. Does anyone know what I have to do first? What do we think, Luke?
A minus x.
Okay, so basically Luke is saying subtract x on both sides. Luke, you're right, but why? Yeah, okay, so this is what we're saying. Like here, if we wanted it parallel, we knew that parallel lines have the same slope, so you just copy it down. We know here perpendicular lines have opposite reciprocal, so just flip it. But wait, I don't know what the slope is because it's not in slope-intercept form. So that's why Luke is saying figure out what this is in slope-intercept form first, and then you can flip it and make it the different symbol. Okay, so you have to figure out what the slope is first, and you can't do that until you solve for y. So first thing Luke said was to subtract x. So you end up having 2y equals negative x. Remember, that's the same thing as saying negative 1x and then minus 4. Okay, someone other than Luke, what's the next thing I need to do then? Emily?
Divide the entire equation by 2.
Yes, divide everything by 2 because 2 is still on the same side as y. So that gets divided by 2. That gets divided by 2. Does someone think they can say the whole and like the whole equation part of the answer? What do you think, Owen?
Y equals negative 0.5x minus 2.
So no one said negative 0.5x. I wrote negative half. It's the same thing. You can write it as a decimal. You can write it as a fraction because it's not repeating. So however you want to. Remember, if it were repeating, you have to write it as a fraction. Okay. Owen, you said minus 2 because negative 4 divided by positive 2 is negative 2. Now, I know what the slope is. Isn't the slope going to be this? Which I'm not going to copy here because I need it to be perpendicular. So Kip, what is perpendicular?
Like a T. Like
Right. So that's the symbol for perpendicular. But what would be the number perpendicular to that?
Positive 2.
Positive 2, right? We flip it. So 1 over 2, flip it is 2 over 1. So that's just 2. But then remember, you flip the symbol too. It's not negative anymore. It's positive. So that's my slope. Now let's find the b. Aren't I just doing exactly the same thing that Cameron just told me to do in the other problem? Right? Here's my equation, y equals 2x plus b. And plug in your x and your y. So your y is 3, your x is negative 2 plus b. So at this point, multiply. So you have 3 equals negative 4 plus b. And then I'm going to add 4 to both sides. So you have 7 equals b. So b equals 7. And remember, you can always double check your answers. So like what you can do to double check this one is you can graph it and you can say, okay, 2x plus 7. Does negative 2 comma 3 hit that graph? Yeah, it does. And then to see if it's perpendicular, you can kind of just eyeball it. And by putting this equation in here, so negative 0.5x minus 2, look at the two lines. Do they look like they're perpendicular? Yeah, pretty much. I know that it doesn't really, I mean, it looks kind of more like an X than it does like a L. And the reason why is because you see how this screen is not a perfect square, right? It's longer here and it's shorter here. That's why everything is just off a little bit. So you just kind of have to eyeball it. Okay, that's on your first quiz. Any questions on your first quiz so far? Yes, Sienna?
On that one, on like the last one, why couldn't it just be negative 2? Because isn't it
Why couldn't what be negative 2?
like the y-intercept?
The y-intercept is not negative 2 because you want to know what is perpendicular to this line. So you want a completely different line. If you have a completely different line, it's going to have completely different numbers. Okay, other side. This one should be pretty quick. This is now going towards your next quiz, the line of best fit one. I feel like some of us might have trouble with the questions that look like this. What's the correlation? So remember, you have three correlations. You have a positive correlation. That's when your dots kind of go up. You have a negative correlation. That's when your dots kind of go down. Or you have no correlation when your dots are everywhere. Like a snowstorm. Okay. So there's two ways that you can maybe think about this. I'm going to do both ways because I feel like the longer way takes longer, but more of you understand that. Whereas the shorter way, not all of you get it. So I'm going to do both ways. Let me do the way that I hope that all of you understand this. To see what correlation that you have, why don't we sketch it out? Okay, so it doesn't have to be perfect, just a rough sketch. My X's, I go from 1 to 10. My Y's, you go up to about 9, so let's just go 1 to 10. So this does not have to be a perfect sketch. It literally is just very, very, I guess, rudimentary, okay? It can be an ugly sketch and your dots don't have to be perfect. So 0, 6.5 is about right there. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. 1, 7, I just want to know what it looks like. Oh, 1, 6.8, so kind of right below it. So go ahead and sketch it out. The dots don't have to be perfect. You just kind of want to see how your dots fall. So your picture is not going to look exactly like mine. It's not going to be perfect. You just kind of want to see how your dots fall. In other words, are they going upward? Are they going downward? Or are they just everywhere? Okay, now that you see a rough sketch of your dots, what do we think? Positive, negative, or no? Positive. So that's my answer. That took a little bit of time. I know. Okay, so if you want to be a little bit lazier and you don't want to like sketch it out to visually see, then maybe look at your numbers. Look at it this way. Okay, from 0 to 10, you see how your numbers are going up? And then I would say, okay, from 6.5 to 8.9, for the most part, like you're going from 6 to 7 to 7 to 8 to 8 to 9. So like for the most part, your numbers are both going up, right? This is going up and that's going up. So if they're both going up, that means that it's going in the upward direction. That's why it's positive. So some of you can understand that just by looking at this, but I bet there are some of us that need to see the visual. Okay, so maybe take a look at this right here. So like here, your numbers from 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, they're going up. And here, 11 to 8 to 9 to 8 to 7 to 6 to 5 to 4, they're going down. So just by seeing this, what do you think? Do you think it's positive, negative, or no? It's negative. Okay, so again, I feel like not all of us saw that it was negative. So if you can't see it, that's okay. Just take literally the extra 2 minutes and graph it. So you can do that right now, or if you understand it, just give me a quick second. So do you see how for the most part, my dots are going down? So, I mean, it literally took me 2 minutes, okay? It's not that much more time. All right, so let's look at this one. 0, 1, 2, 3, 6, 8, 9, 11. Oh, sorry, that's 11, not a 1. 11 and 13. And then you got 6, 8, 2, 7, 9, -3, 1, -4, 9, 3. What do we think? No, there's no correlation. Okay, but again, if you can't see it, then we can, oh, there's a negative here too. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then 1, 2, 3, -3. Okay, so if I really quickly sketch this, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 7.5, 6, 9, 8, -3, 9, -4, 11, 9, 13, 3. Like you see how your dots are pretty much just everywhere. So that's why it's no correlation. So sketch it if you can't visualize it. Okay, that's always a sure way that you can do it. All right, so